Way back when, a former student of mine who served as my muse during the writing of Haydn's Book of Synastry asked me an interesting question in her astrology chart. I was able to kind of answer it, but not really answer it. And she was actually a really, really good source of data while I was studying Haydn's Book of Synastry. And so in this recording, I've decided to finally answer the question she asked me, which a lot of people ask in an astro chart reading, which is, how do I find happiness? I think this is probably one of the central questions that is on lots and lots of people's minds. And now the answer to that is it's simple, but it's not simple. And what I have here in front of you is an astro wheel which basically has all of the asteroids and bodies that are really, really responsible for happiness. The short answer to finding happiness, just in general, at least as indicated in the astrology chart, is to be content with what you have. Not just what you have as in what is in your possession, but what is in your potential, what's in your actions, what's in your friends, what's in the direction that you've chosen. Happiness is really a byproduct of being content with the gifts that you've been given. And in this astro wheel, you'll see all of the major players that are responsible for this. Now, I said the answer to finding happiness is simple, but not simple. And the reason is because happiness isn't just a matter of being content in one area. If you want full and complete happiness with your life, you actually need to be content in several areas. And those areas don't always have to do with you. They also have to do with other people, with where you put yourself, with what you think you're doing with your life, and so on. And so I've indicated those asteroids in here. The flip side to this is that even if you get all of the happiness asteroids down, there are still about 5 asteroids which are really responsible for unhappiness. And I'll talk about those later. So let's start here. I'm going to go around the wheel and list anything that is not a major planet which is responsible for happiness. I've included the major planets here like Sun and Venus and Mercury and Mars and Saturn and Neptune and Uranus and all that. But the ones that are really responsible for happiness are the lettered ones here. Let's start with Waltraut. Waltraut is perfection. It's just perfect acceptance of where you're at. Wherever Waltraut is where you're most likely to just have things that can do no wrong in your eyes. This person, by the way, has a very happy chart, and you'll see it as we go along. And one of the reasons that she's going to have really built-in happiness is because she's got Waltraut right here in Pisces. I'll tell you more about that when I talk about degrees in a second, but let me keep going with the asteroids. Another happiness asteroid here is Laurentia, right here. Laurentia is where you have things handed to you without you trying. She's got Laurentia right near her ascendant, which means that wherever she goes, she tends to have things handed to her. She has opportunities handed to her. Antivertex is where you are the change writer for other people. Vertex is where you experience change in your life, but you tend to experience change in your life against the context of your own action amidst that change. And so if people are around you attributing the change to you, although you may experience it as your vertex, those people will experience you as being the writer of change. Anti-vertex plays into happiness that comes from self-efficacy. If you want to feel useful, if you want to feel like you're actually doing something with your life or changing the world or something like that, then you're going to use your anti-vertex. Veritas is where you do things that are more or less right. You are always in the right with Veritas, more or less. And she's got this here in Taurus. Tyche is where you're never without friends. This is Tyche. Tyche is an asteroid where you're always backed. And it's a lot like Bacchus. Bacchus are the people who will never leave your side. The people or the things or the situations who are always with you. And you can see that she's in her element with those friends, those close friends who will never leave her. While we're up here, let's take a look at Clarissa. Clarissa is where you have a place of acceptance in the world. Armor is your airspace. I talked about armor and Annalise in describing duo mates and ideal partners. Armor is different from Annalise, though, in that it represents things that hover around you, people who hover around you, whether or not you like them. Now, armor is not always good news, but whatever airspace you naturally have, there are some things that are just constantly around you. And in order to achieve happiness, one of the things that you look for is contentment with whatever lands on your armor. Hera is for bonding. These are deep emotional bonds. And this is different from Juno, which is commitment in the eyes of the world. Going back down here, we have Hephaistos, your emotional home base. We can see that this person has Hephaistos next to her moon. And so she's really, really emotionally invested in her home or in areas that feel like home. And related to this is Djezair. Djezair is pretty unique among the thousand because it explicitly relates to family. If people want to be your friend, they're really going to have to get past your Djezair. They're going to have to show, for example, in Gemini, they're going to have to be able to air their opinions and have a vibe about the opinions that they air. And I got two more in here. The rest of them are considered major. First is anti-Mercury. Okay, so you're familiar with Mercury in your chart. And in the book 144, I talk about anti-planets. One of the major enablers of happiness is the opposite of your Mercury. Mercury has to do with common grounding, and it's associated with the intellect and things like that. But when you use your intellect, you usually use it against a context, a thing that enables you to establish common ground and communicate whatever you've found. And that context is the opposition to it, anti-Mercury. Anti-Mercury is not a real planet. In order to figure it out, you just take your Mercury and you go directly opposite. And the anti-Mercury is your enabler. It's your mobilizer. Whenever you interact with your anti-Mercury, you're interacting with something that ultimately enables you to move forward in the world, in your mind, or grow, and all of those good things. The last one is a recent asteroid which, out of the first 1900, was the strongest indicator of your adoring partner. And that asteroid is Savonlinna, Savonlinna. Savonlinna is the best indicator I've found of a partner who adores you. They're going to tend to show up when you're doing the kinds of things that are indicated in your chart. And they're also going to show up doing this kind of thing in your chart. It depends on where you're at in your life. Sometimes they'll do the chart indicated position. Sometimes you'll do it with respect to them. Now, these are the happiness asteroids. Bacchus, Clarissa, Waltraut, Laurentia, Antivertex, Veritas, Tyche, Djezair, Hephaistos, Armor and Hera, Savonlinna, and Anti-Mercury. Those are very, very important for establishing happiness. Now, I'm about to close out this recording just to tell you how to read these. Now, it's not just the signs that matter. You could look at angles, you could look at aspects and stuff like that, but you really don't have to. Instead, you can look at the duodecanes. Duodecanes is what I call the divisions of signs within signs. So each sign, there are 12 of them, right, can be divided into 12 sections. 5 degrees, 10 degrees, 15, 20, 25, 30. If you chop 30 into 12 sections, you get 2.5 degrees each. And so you get here to here, here to here, here to here, and so on. Based on the book 144, my findings from the statistics, these things go backwards. They go backwards starting from the end of Pisces. So right here, at the 0 degree of Aries, you have to count backwards, and then you use the harmonics. 1s, 2s, 3s, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and you use fractions of a circle which correspond to those. Conjuncts, oppositions, trines, squares, quintile, sextile, septile, octile, novile, decile, undecile, and inconjunct. Now, wherever all of your asteroids, and it's not just asteroids, it's main bodies, land, it tells you basically how this thing plays out. So for example, if we want to know about this person's Savonlinna, what is going on when she has the adoring partner? She has the adoring partner, it looks like, in the second group, because we're going backwards, remember? So here's the conjunct and here's the opposition. So it's a Cancer opposition. That means that in conveying the emotional, that's Cancer, values, that's the opposition, that's where the adoring partner appears. As long as she's able to comfortably convey her emotional values, she's more likely to attract a Savonlinna. This stuff is uncanny. It's amazing when it actually, when you actually use it. It almost always works, except when we get distracted with other things. And so, if we go back and we look at, say, her Clarissa, where would she find a place of acceptance in the world? Her Clarissa is right here, and this is in the duodecanate of morals, because we got 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 is a square, so this is a Capricorn square. Squares are emotional, but Capricorns are like structured groups. And so when she's structuring emotions, and that's what corresponds to morals, she has an accepted place in the world. This is interesting depending on the person. I actually know a couple of people with the same more or less birth chart, and they're very different people. And in order to find a place of acceptance in the world that she'll be comfortable with, she really, she'll have a kind of moral or moral-related stance. Okay, so you can read all of these guys, and all you need to do is read the duodecanate, and it will tell you where you'll find this stuff. So, for example, if you want to understand your family, if she wants to understand her family dynamic here, you've got Djezair, and it's in the last, like right there, the last duodecanate of Gemini. So it goes conjunct, blah, 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 inconjunct. Gemini inconjunct is the vibe of people giving off their communication. She needs to be comfortable with that in order for the family thing to work out. These asteroids are the gateway to happiness. Now, in order to really get happiness down in all departments, you actually have to get it down in every one of these particular asteroids. It's not just about emotional satisfaction, your moon, and it's not just about your, accepting everything that comes to you. I've included in here, by the way, Pallas and the North Node. Even though people can be happy with their private lives, they're not necessarily happy unless they have a public life that they're satisfied with as well. And one of the best indicators of that is your Pallas. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and stop this recording, and in the next recording, I'm going to talk about what makes people unhappy.